The first jolt sounded wrong. A hollow crack, like a bat on a dented dumpster. Overhead bins chattered. Lights fell a shade. And someone's ginger ale stitched glitter across the ceiling before raining back down in sticky pins. The plane inhaled hard and forgot how to exhale. A baby cried, then went silent in that terrifying way babies do. The aisle filled with the rubbery smell of overheated wiring, coffee gone bitter, and fear that hadn't learned its name yet. Masks dropped like wilted sunflowers. For a beat, nobody moved. Then the cabin remembered it was a body and wrenched itself toward air. Nia Carter watched her hands instead of the aisle, left palm to right wrist count. Steady. Don't let the numbers get ahead of the breath. The safety card grinned cartoon calm, while the elastic snapped her braids, and the mask hissed apple metal cold into her mouth. Is anyone a doctor? A flight attendant asked, voice tight, hair pinned by willpower and policy. The plane shrugged again, mean and quick. In first class, a big man sagged sideways, the color wrong around his mouth, his watch flashing a square of light every time the fuselage rolled. A woman unbuckled without asking permission from gravity. Compressions, she said, already kneeling, already tearing the shirt open along a seam that knew it would lose. I'm a nurse. I need someone's weight and account. Nia popped her buckle like a guilty secret. Carpet burned her palms as she slid, catching the sour of tomato juice and shoes and old disinfectant. I can press, she said, and heard her voice come out older by 2 years. The nurse, her badge would later read, Ms. Della, measured with sternum and fingers. Here, arms straight, lock the elbows, count out loud so I know you're in it. The man's chest felt like a car hood under winter. 1, 2, 3. The plane pitched, she planted, and rode it like a small, furious boat. 28, 29, 30. An AED thumped open on the carpet. Cartoon voice too cheerful. Analyzing, do not touch the patient. No shock advised. Of course it would say that Ms. Della pinched the mask, breathed for him, and Nia shoved rhythm back into the ribs that had quit on their job. On the 36th press, something slipped from the man's inner pocket. A glossy square spat out by the turbulence skittered under her shoe. She pinned it by reflex and didn't look, because looking wasn't oxygen. He coughed like an engine that had decided maybe. His eyelids fluttered, lost, then found hair. Shame crossed his face first, which was how you knew he was rich. He'd learned to apologize to the wrong things. His hand was cold when it closed on her wrist. Don't the word rasped sand. He swallowed. Don't let them name you. The plane leveled by a grudging inch. The masks hissed like snakes that were tired of being dramatic. Nia slid her free hand into his jacket because his eyes told her there was a second sentence in there. A small key met her fingers. Oval bow. Stamped numbers that didn't care about anybody's feelings. It made her palm ring with a tiny cold that stayed after she closed her fist. Keep, he said, and his grip was more plea than order. The glossy square had wriggled out from under her shoe. Between compressions, she fed it up onto her thigh, a woman laughing into a man's shoulder under a winter string of lights. The corner stamped with an old red date, a thumb smudge of glue behind it, like someone had once cared to stick it somewhere safe. The big man saw the square move and saw the key vanish, and looked at Nia like a ledger had just added a line. He tried to say a name, and failed the first time. Rovan, he managed. Rovan Hartley. She knew the name like a plaque. Buildings wore it like a brooch. It didn't belong to a man choking on cheap cabin air with a paper bib under his chin. Flight attendants. Prepare for landing, the captain said. Careful as someone carrying china across a wet kitchen. Medical diversion to Gander. The cabin exhaled. then remembered inches, bags, knees, rules. They hit the runway with a judgment. Applause wasn't joy, it was math. Paramedics brought red boxes and took Rowan away. White metal bones of the stretcher bright under the broken cabin light. Nia slid back to her row on rented legs. Her seatbelt latched with a sound she felt in her molars. The key left a pale oval printed into her skin when she opened her hand and looked. Rain cross-hatched the window. Runway lights stretched like bones underwater. A flight attendant crouched at her row with a bottle of water and eyes that had burned through their stash of soft. "You did good," the attendant said. "I did. Something," Nia answered. Her mouth tasted like pennies and old apples. A Navy windbreaker leaned into the aisle. Badge. Notebook. Pen that clicked like a nervous habit he was ashamed of. "Miss," he said, tone trying to be both authority and fleece blanket. "Mind. A couple of questions." "Okay." Her throat had grit in it. She kept her left hand closed over the hoodie where Mama Ruth had stitched a secret zipper, like a prayer you couldn't misplace. "Name. Nia Carter. Age. 12. You removed an object from the passenger's clothing." He gave it to me. His eyebrow lifted a millimeter. His pen didn't. "And a photograph. It fell. I picked it up so it wouldn't die." She handed the square over, because some things weren't for her yet. A woman in a charcoal suit materialized 3 rows back. Earpiece looped like a secret. Her smile had a calorie count. She called the windbreaker by his first name without earning it, and said the word liaison, like it was a velvet rope. "We're smoothing travel for priority passengers," she said to the air. "I'm not a priority," Nia said, and let the sarcasm wear sneakers. The woman nodded like Nia had complimented her shoes. On the tarmac, the rain got serious. Paramedics lifted Rowan into it as if the sky were an office they had a key to. The charcoal suit tracked him with a finger to her earpiece, speaking to no one and everyone at once. "Do you have someone meeting you?" the windbreaker asked. "Yes." Nia lied in the way you lie when you plan to make it true. "Okay," he said, and wrote down none of what you hope a person like that would write. They taxied to a gate that pretended Canada was just a big waiting room. The terminal breathed conditioned air and committee decisions. A cleaning cart rolled past with a low hum, wheels holding the day like a secret. Her phone buzzed against her thigh. "Mama Ruth." "I'm okay," she said first, because that was always the toll to cross the bridge to words. "You breathing steady." The voice braided Sunday and hospital into one rope. "Yes." "Did you eat?" "No." "You will." That was a prophecy, not an order. "What happened?" "A man almost." She couldn't say the word. "We pressed him back," she said instead. "He gave me a key." "A what?" "Old kind," she said. "Honest edges. Numbers on the belly. Don't let strange hands name that baby," Mama Ruth said. And Nia could hear the wet thumb turning a page of a TV guide in another room. "He won't." "Put it in your stitch pocket." "It's there." A soft knock touched her shoulder from the aisle. The charcoal suit had swapped the terminal for the cabin like rooms were items in a closet. She held a laminated smile between 2 fingers. "We'll help expedite you in London," she said. "Expedite what?" Nia asked. "Routine verification," the woman said, and the word, routine, sat down with its shoes on the couch, like immigration. "Just making sure the file is neat," she said. Her earpiece caught a whisper and gave nothing back. Nia pressed her forehead to the plastic window until the cold talked her pulse down. Her breath fogged a small oval. The oval cleared. The line of runway lights trembled and straightened. She wiped the glass with the side of her hand like you erase a chalkboard, but keep the idea. They reboarded after the paperwork that makes emergencies official. Passengers filed with new manners. A man in row 7 said, "Well, that was exciting and then had the decency to look ashamed. The jetway smelled like wet wool and aluminum. Cabin lights reset to a recipe. Nia tucked her backpack beneath the seat and rolled the key into the stitched pocket until fabric remembered its shape. The captain came on with his careful voice. "Thank you for your patience." The plane pushed itself down wet concrete and found sky again. Clouds stacked like folded towels. Seatbelt signs stayed on because faith isn't a policy. Nia closed her eyes and saw doors with keyholes that kept walking away. She woke to the blue hour that airports practice. Announcements apologized in 3 accents. Customs lines kinked like hoses, and then unkinked when a supervisor walked by. At the immigration counter, a man with a tired tie looked from her passport to his screen and back again. His fingers paused on the keyboard. "Miss Carter," he said. "One moment." "How long is a moment?" she asked. He almost smiled. "Longer than you want." He picked up a phone, spoke quietly, put it down like it might break if he admitted it could. A printer coughed out a slip. He stapled it to the back of her arrival card, with a noise that sounded more permanent than paper should. "Routine verification in 24 hours, he said, like he was reading a weather report he didn't believe. "Do I have a problem?" "No," he said. His eyes said, "Not yet." Past the barrier, the terminal opened into a glare of signs and families, and the kind of light that makes faces look honest, even when they aren't. A man in a blue tie held a placard with Carter in letters big enough for stage. He didn't wave it like a flag. He held it like an agreement. "Imran Singh," he said, "on behalf of Whitmore and Lowe." "Does that mean lawyer?" "It means someone who won't let you get lost," he said. "Also, I know where they hide the decent sandwiches." They walked at a pace that agreed with rain. Escalators carried other people's conversations up and down without editing. Imran didn't reach for her bag until she let him. "Do you like mushrooms?" he asked. "They taste like fridge." "Excellent," he said. "We'll avoid refrigerators." Outside, London pressed its wet cheek to the car windows. Wipers drummed a nervous lullaby. In the back seat, Nia found the seam of the hoodie, pressed 2 fingers to the stitch, and felt the key answer with its small, factual chill. She let her forehead find glass again. Breath hazed a stubborn oval. "Keep the door," she whispered into the fog, and watched it clear. Heathrow tried to be a city that forgot it was a hallway. The ceilings were too high for truth. Announcements apologized with perfect posture. The air tasted like brushed steel and tired coffee. Nia followed the pictogram. Man with suitcase, arrow, passport. Her shoes made a soft argument with the floor. At the immigration desk, the officer compared face to paper, paper to screen, screen to a place behind his eyes that measured trouble. He had a tie that had fought better mornings and lost. Purpose of visit. Family. How long? A few days. He tapped a key and frowned at something that didn't belong to her. "Miss Carter," he said, voice careful, "would you step aside?" A glassed cubicle waited with 2 chairs and a clock that ticked like a polite metronome. The officer's badge read R. Allerton, and his pen clicked 3 times before he remembered to stop. "This is routine," he said, "which never is. We'll need to verify your point of contact. Shouldn't take long." "How long is long?" she asked. "Not long," he said. The clock chose sides. He dialed a number on a phone that looked like it had a union. He used words like flag and liaison and note, appended, the way a person tries not to say who told him to look. He hung up and made a note in block letters that wanted to be a verdict, and settled for being a memo. Nia breathed the way her grandmother had taught her, counting ribs instead of reasons. She pressed 2 fingers against the stitched pocket inside her hoodie. The key answered with its small, stubborn chill. A woman with an empty clipboard hovered just outside the cubicle smile laminated, charcoal suit, earpiece tucked like it had always been there. She checked the name on the folder, checked Nia's face, checked the door for witnesses, and moved on. The smell of her perfume had a boardroom in it. Imran was waiting in arrivals with the blue tie and a placard that made sense of the room. He offered the sign like a joke, then folded it away like a secret he didn't plan to sell. Apologies, he said. We thought routine would mean under an hour. It meant 3, she said. It often does when someone says liaison first. He said, May I? He gestured at the backpack. She nodded. He took it like something entrusted, not surrendered. They crossed to the car through air that insisted on being close. The rain wasn't rain yet, just a rehearsed damp. In the back seat, she watched lights smear into commas. The city tried to be helpful and mostly was news from home. Imran said gently, the robotics program has 36 hours in the power meter, and nothing more hopeful than that. 36, she repeated, not because she hadn't heard him, but because numbers sometimes needed to be said twice to be true. Her mouth tasted like apple peels. We'll do what we can without promising miracles, he said. Miracles prefer to be surprised. They took the long way to Whitmore and Low so the car could remember how to be warm. Portland stone and polite brass waited with their good manners polished. Inside, the receptionist wore a navy that matched certainty and handed them visitor badges with the efficiency of a metronome. Lydia met them at a stairwell that believed in echoes. She had a stack of thin folders and a face that saved its smiles for the right receivers. Immigration, she asked. Routine, Nia said, and let the word do what it wanted. Of course, Lydia said. We've lodged a note asking who appended the note. She led them to a small conference room with a window that borrowed light from a courtyard of well-behaved shrubs. Edgar Whitmore entered like a sentence that knew where its clauses went. He placed a glass of water where hands might be, and did not push it forward. We have an appointment with the bank at 2, he said. Private client services. Ms. Price will accompany. We expect a time lock and dual control. You will do the opening. Miss Carter, we will do the watching. Someone toggled a flag at the border, Lydia said, glancing down at her phone. Our request for a name met with a policy that doesn't admit names. She looked up. We'll take the policy at its word and file a record of the conversation. Paper, Edgar said, as if the noun were a prayer. Patience. And sandwiches. He was right about the sandwiches. They were better than they needed to be. Nia chewed with the attention of a person paying rent to her own body. In a quiet minute, she set The Secret Garden on the table and slid the blue journal beside it. The cloth cover waited. She wrote in the margins small, steady letters. I'll say nouns when I choose. She let the ink dry while the room listened to itself. Then she closed the book and rubbed her thumb over the gold-pressed title until the letters felt less like a dare. They reached the bank through rain that had decided to show up properly. Umbrellas budded like reasonable flowers. The lobby smelled of lilies and tonal money. Clocks declared that geography was a paperwork problem already solved. Private client services happened behind a door that opened after a camera made up its mind. A man named Darley wore a tie, the color of permission, and carried a binder like a passport. Dual control. He said, time lock. 4 minutes. You have time to regret and unregret. I'll stick with regret later, Nia said, which made Lydia's mouth change shape at the edges. The vault level was colder, in a way that felt deliberate. Cameras pulsed a steady red, the heartbeat of institutional memory. The wall of boxes had numbers engraved in a font that refused whimsy. Box 17422, Darley said, the way clergy say an address where something important happened. Mr. Hartley sealed it. You will open it. Nia slid the old key into the lower lock. Darlie fitted the bank's key into the upper. A choreography practiced enough to look like ritual. The drawer sighed free and lay on the table like a promise trying to be humble. They would inventory in a minute. They would write down what memory could not be trusted to hold. For now, the time lock clicked, and Darlie stepped aside like a man leaving the frame of a painting. Nia broke the wax with her nail, the sound a small, honest violence. Inside, objects rested with the confidence of things that had been waiting. A locket on a thin chain, its face nicked in two places like a moon learning scars. A blue linen journal wrapped in tissue. A USB stick with a logo that had fallen out of fashion 3 rebrands ago. An envelope fat with photographs softened at the corners. "Do you want a private room?" Darlie asked. "Yes," Lydia said. "With a camera that knows when not to look." Darlie nodded and gave them a smaller space, the kind that dignified paper and made talk think twice. Nia didn't open the locket. She let it warm in her palm, dent already mapping itself to skin. The journal she held like an animal you plan to set free. She read the first 3 lines and closed it, because that was the size of truth she could carry right now. Edgar did the counting that counted. Lydia labeled sleeves in a hand-square, patient print. Chain of custody forms bulleted the table like beads. Nia signed where her name belonged and nowhere else. On the way out, a man in a cheaper suit than the furniture leaned a fraction into their path. "Fire drill," he said. "Access corridor closed." His radio didn't have an earpiece. His badge font was wrong. "On what authority?" Edgar asked, his voice the exact temperature of "no facilities." The man said too quickly. "Lo it," Lydia told Darlie. "Name, time, workplace ID, all clear," the man said, retreating before his story had a place to live. The corridor reopened the way lies do when you look at them. They reached the car without sprinting. Cameras blinked. Disappointed, rain stitched the windows into a cloth. Imran pulled into traffic, like someone who believed in blinkers and luck in that order. Her phone pulsed. A message from the community center's director. "We have 36 hours of power." Then darkness. The kids say hi. They asked if robots dream in outages. A second, from a number with good stationary energy. "C. Price. Counsel our clients would like to mitigate press harm. Scholarships. Housing. Dignity through discretion." She forwarded the second to Lydia with 1 word. "Record." She replied to the first with 2. "I'm here." They stopped at the hotel long enough to breathe and to find out how silence sounded in a carpeted hallway. A housekeeping cart stood mid-corridor, unattended. A stack of fresh towels leaning like a decision. Nia glanced at the cart, then at the camera dome in the ceiling, then at the door to her room with its slot and its secret. Inside, the air smelled of lilies that had gotten what they wanted. She set the locket on the desk and watched it not move. The dent caught the lamp at an angle that made the room remember earlier damage. Imran knocked once. "Walk," he asked. "There's a bakery that makes bread like forgiveness." The street shone with honest rain. Puddles held duplicate traffic lights. The bakery breathed heat and butter and a little pride. They ate standing up, paper bags hot in their hands, crumbs making hopeful maps down the front of their coats. "Do you want to talk about the flag?" Imran asked. "I want the name on it." She said, "We'll file for that." He said, "Then file for the paper that says why we can't have it, and file for the paper that says why the paper says we can't have it." "That's a lot of filing," she said. "Justice is a stationary habit," he said, deadpan, and she let herself laugh once. Quick, like a hiccup that liked her. They stopped at a churchyard gate that stuck and then yielded the way stubborn things do. Headstones kept their counsel. "What would Mama Ruth say?" Imran asked. "She'd say, Keep your receipts and your spine, Nia said, and eat when you can, because tomorrow isn't a promise it can keep. They walked back slower, because the street allowed it. At the hotel, a woman in a charcoal suit stood just inside the revolving door, speaking into a phone that might have been a mirror. Her mouth smiled without her eyes. She didn't see Nia, or pretended not to, which sometimes is the same thing. In the room, Nia opened the journal again. She touched the line she'd written, and the line touched back. She added one more, small and stubborn. Under the first, paper and patience, breath and door. She capped the pen. The lamp hummed. Somewhere in the building, a vacuum cleaner made the long, low sound of a machine doing a job. Nobody praised. She pressed her forehead to the window. The glass cooled her skin and steadied the rest. Her breath fogged an oval. The oval cleared. The city stayed. The private room smelled like paper that had been believed for a long time. A low lamp made the table into a small stage, somewhere beyond the wall. A printer cleared its throat and decided against it. Darley set the shallow steel drawer down with both hands, as if it might take offense. For the record, he said, voice neutral as carpet, time lock released at 1412. Drawer 1742. Under dual control. Inner seals intact on presentation. Lydia aligned a legal pad with the table's edge. Video. Off in this room by policy. Darley answered. On at entry and exit. Custody is continuous. Edgar uncapped a pen that looked like it had a pension. Miss Carter will inspect, he said. We will witness. We will not participate. He angled his watch so it could learn the hour too. The wax across the blue linen was stamped twice bank crest, an oval initial you could read as R. Hartley, if your eyes liked intent. Nia slid her nail under a seam, and the crack small, fibrous, sounded like a promise breaking at the right place. Inside order that had taken time to practice, a locket coiled on a thin chain, gold catching light in scuffed flecks. A dent, shallow as a crescent thumbprint. A journal wrapped in tissue the color of clean linen, gold letters pressed. To my daughter, like someone had tried to make hope a product. A USB stick trapped in a clear sleeve. Its logo, a fossil from 3 rebrands ago. An envelope fat with photographs that had learned to be soft at the corners. Nia didn't open the locket. She let it warm in her palm until metal remembered skin, and the dent found its old place above bone. She set it on the pad's margin and steadied her hands with the weight. Inventory sheet, Darley said. He unfolded a single page with squares printed in a disciplined grid. We'll list items and seal numbers on exit. Miss Carter, please confirm description. I'll note condition. The journal, Lydia prompted gently. Nia pulled back the tissue. The first page carried no salutation, only handwriting trained not to wobble. If this finds you, it took me too long. She read to the end of the line and closed the cover, because that was the size of truth she could carry in one mouthful. Confirmed. Edgar murmured. Pen. Moving like a metronome with opinions. Journal. Blue linen. Gilt titel. Moderate wear to corners. The envelope unbuttoned with a sad little sigh. Photographs slid out in a slow spill. A stoop with winter lights. A child mid-glue at a science fair. A bench taken from too far away. The lens, not sure what it loved. At the bottom, a receipt. The size of a playing card, hid under the last print, as if it knew the room would prefer not to see it. Nia lifted it with 2 fingers. Pembridge Storage, Limited. Client, Hart and Row Holdings, UK Limited. Unit, 5C North Annex. Access, CC plus key. Notes, auxiliary deposit time locksmith required. If key mismatch, stamped in red, 24:48 HR lead time. For warrants or certified access, Edgar's eyebrows made a brief attempt at high ground. That, he said softly, is a second door. Darley leaned in enough to read without touching. North Annex is a separate cage, he said. Different time lock. We'd need a bank-certified locksmith on site, and, given the client of record, is a company, a resolution, or a court order naming Miss Carter. We have the man and his counsel, Lydia said. What we lack is grace. She turned to Nia. Do you want us to chase this now, or after we reseal 1742? Now, Nia said, because the word later had gotten expensive. She put the receipt in a clear evidence sleeve. Lydia labeled it in neat blue capitals, date and minute, and the room's name written like a liturgy. The door opened a fraction without the courtesy of a knock. A man in a blue blazer with a name badge printed in a font the bank had never approved pushed his head in. Random audit, he said brightly. Compliance would like to. On what authority? Lydia asked, not moving. Facilities. Superb, Edgar said. State your full name and position for the record. He did not have a recorder in his hand. He made the sentence believe one was present anyway. The man's smile shed 2 watts. We can come back, he said, and did. Darley apologized to no one and everyone. Our apologies, he said. We don't do random in this department. We only do scheduled and logged. He made a note in a book that had numbered pages, that old magic trick against vanishing. They continued. The USB turned in the sleeve with the gravity of a small, untrustworthy planet. Lydia slid it into an anti-static bag and wrote the bag's serial in the margin. We'll image this on a clean machine, she said. Hash before and after. No one plugs mystery into anything they love. Chain of custody, Edgar said, because the noun still paid his mortgage. He passed. Nia à ton père évident push. When you're ready, you'll decide what leaves with you and what returns. Either is lawful, neither is a test. Nia checked the time without meaning to. The map in her head put 36 hours. Over Baltimore, like a cloud. The receipt's red stamp added Sashaba to the page. Deadlines shuffled. Yostled found their places. Private viewing, Darley offered. A room 2 doors down. We'll change custody logs for the transfer and then change them back. Yes, Nia said. Please. The smaller room smelled like wool and old promises. The lamp made a circle of warmer light that dignified paper without flattering it. Lydia and Edgar stayed in the doorway, to be witnesses without being gravity. The door remained open by 4 polite inches. The corridor's cooler air washed in and made a draft like a quiet breath. She opened the journal again. She read 4 lines this time, ended on a sentence that apologized without using the word. She turned the book sideways and wrote in the inner margin in letters small enough to make room for tomorrow. I'm reading. I'm not forgiving yet. Those aren't the same. She waited for the ink to dry and added, lower. A second line. Keys open doors. Names open rooms. I'll keep both. She didn't open the locket. The dent had learned her skin. The chain lay on the pad like a small road that had already chosen its map. The USB she didn't touch again. The photographs she stacked with their corners even. An order that cost nothing and felt like something. Darley reappeared with forms that knew their choreography. If you mean to remove items from vault protection, he said, we'll log them by description and seal the pouch. You may reseal any time. The bank doesn't love secrets, but it keeps them if paid to. I'll take the journal, Nia said. And the locket, the USB, Lydia asked, seal and store under my name. Nia said. Image later on your table. Not mine, Edgar wrote, released to Miss Carter, in a hand as legible as law. Lydia signed. Then Darlie, then Nia where her name belonged. Ink turning into history in real time. Darlie slid the pouch across. Its little zip hissed shut, a small, decisive sound. They walked the drawer back under cameras that blinked like patient owls. The vault exhaled cool on their wrists. The time lock clunked its way toward obligation, and metal met metal with the satisfaction of things built to agree. Upstairs, the lobby had learned a new hour and changed its face. A woman in a charcoal suit lounged by the lilies, speaking to a phone with her chin tilted the way people do when they expect the room to take dictation. She didn't see Nia, or decided not to, which was a kind of seeing. Outside, rain stitched neat, slanted lines into the afternoon. The city's color turned one shade more honest. Imran opened the car door and made a shape with his body that converted lenses into weather. All good, he asked. Some doors, Nia said. Some locks. Excellent, he said. We know experts in doors and locks. People underestimate Hingas. They drove without the radio, the wipers making metronome of the road. At a light, Nia took the blue journal out and added a third line to her private ledger. I saw a trick. I wrote it down. It stayed a trick. The light changed. They moved. A black sedan floated in their lane. 2 cars back then peeled off. As if it had remembered a better errand, Lydia's eyes marked it in the mirror and saved the note for later, which is where some notes belong. They stopped by Whitmore and Lowe, only long enough to file what the day had made entry logs, seal numbers, Darlie's name, the fake auditor's badge, the receipt's red stamp scanned, so the color wouldn't lie later. Lydia emailed herself and a secure archive before the building could change its mind and forget what had happened. At 4, Edgar said, I'll call the North Annex manager and request a locksmith by the book. Expect a reply that says, lead time. We'll answer with deadline. Paper enjoys irony. The hotel elevator held 3 strangers, and the fatigue of 4, a housekeeping cart waited alone in the corridor again. Its towel stacks a little neater than earlier, as if someone had tidied the idea of tidiness. Nia keyed in and paused on the threshold the way you do when you've learned to look at rooms before you walk into them. She set the locket on the desk and let the chain puddle like bright thread. The dent found the lamplight and made a crescent that wanted to be moon and settled for map. She pressed 2 fingers to the stitched pocket over her ribs and felt the older key's oval. The cool went into skin and came back out as steadiness. Her phone buzzed with a message from a number that announced itself with fonts and politeness. C. Price, we can relieve this pressure. Scholarships. Housing. A statement about privacy, dignity through discretion. She forwarded it to Lydia labeled record, then put the phone face down and showed the lamp the back of her hand. A minute went by in which nothing demanded to be named. Street noise made a low vet braid. The room remembered air. Nia opened the journal one more time and wrote, small, at the bottom of the margin where the page curved into the spine, keep the door. She capped the pen and listened to the building breathe. The long, patient hum of a place that had learned to host storms without letting them have the furniture. Outside, rain kept writing its slanted script on glass, line after line after line, as if the city had decided to practice truth in a language only windows could read. Morning came in gray slices. The room smelled like lilies trying too hard. Outside, London rubbed rain into its joints and called it weather. Her phone woke mean. Headlines stacked themselves until they blurred. Baltimore teen cons billionaire. Who is she really? Guardian, angel, or grifter? The thumbnails chose the worst light they could find and left it on. A science fair photo surfaced, her mouth open mid-word, ribbon crooked like a bad joke. She didn't cry. She read every line, her tongue filled with the metallic taste that arrives when a room decides to stare. A news alert crawled under the pile with a tidy voice. Community Clinic Board announces pause pending review. The statement used prudence like a shield. It used meanwhile like a knife. The lights blinked twice. Then the room sighed into blackout, and the air conditioner's breath cut off mid-syllable. 7 minutes is short until it has a job. Somewhere down the hall, a door clicked with the cheap certainty of a passkey. Nia stood very still and listened to carpet swallow footsteps. The backup lighting stuttered on. It made the hallway look like an aquarium. A housekeeping cart had drifted 2 doors down from where it slept, towels stacked with the zeal of alibis. She locked the deadbolt. Then she slid the chain as if metal could be an opinion. Her hand found the stitched pocket by habit, 2 fingers pressing the oval of the key until skin and metal agreed. Imran knocked once, the rhythm he used when he didn't want to be a scare. "Bread," he said through the door. "General amnesty for mornings." He stepped in with rain in his hair and a paper bag throwing heat. "We lost power for 7, he said. "Security is pulling footage. They already hate me in a courteous way." He put a buttered roll in her hand and let her chew before he asked, "You saw the headlines." "I saw the angle." "It's a boomerang," he said. "Give it wall and time." A soft chime announced Lydia, already on a call, eyes narrowing like shutters. "Minutes under the Charity Act, please," she said into the phone. "Not the summary, not the press line. Drafts, timestamps, dial-ins." "Yes, I'll wait." She muted with an economical thumb. "You okay?" "I'm reading," Nia said. "I'm not forgiving. That's a full-time job." Lydia said, "We'll unionize later." Imran set another roll on the desk beside the locket. The gold small moon caught a bruise of lamplight. The dent looked new today. Maybe the morning had found a harsher angle. The landline rang with hotel politeness. "Ms. Carter," the concierge said. "A Ms. Voss is here to see you. May we send her up?" "No." Lydia answered from across the room, as if the question had wings. "We'll come down. Public lobby only." She looked at Nia. "You set the door." "Okay," Nia said, and picked up the locket to feel if metal remembered her. It did. The lobby smelled like lemon oil and rain brought in on coats. A quartet sawed something cheerful that failed its audition. Eleanor Voss waited near the lilies, the kind of calm that comes from practice and other people's fear. She shrugged off a charcoal coat and treated the chair like it had been saving itself for her. "Thank you for making time," she said. "We all have headlines to outrun." "We don't run," Lydia said. "We file." Voss smiled as if the word were quaint. "You've had a difficult morning," Voss told Nia, voice tuned for microphones that weren't here. "I can lessen that difficulty. Quietly, discreetly, permanently." "How?" Nia asked. "A joint statement emphasizing privacy and compassion. A tasteful photograph at distance, scholarships plural, housing. A generous commitment to the clinic." She let the list yawn. "In exchange, we agree on boundaries. We reduce noise. We avoid theater." "Who defines the boundaries?" Nia asked. "Adults do," Voss said. "Quick and clean." Imran coughed a laugh that didn't want to be one. "Not today," he said. Voss didn't look at him. She rarely looked at anyone who wasn't the room. "Your clinic board is sensibly cautious," she said to Nia. "They use the word pause. I like that word. It implies self-control. It implies a finger on a button." Lydia said, "We're curious about whose finger." "Curiosity is expensive," Voss said, still smiling. "So is defiance. Accept help. It has a better return." The quartet hit a wrong note and tried to pretend it was modern. Nia watched Voss wave a server away without breaking a sentence, an efficient flick, an assumption that gravity took requests. I don't want to be bought, Nia said. Everyone is bought by something, Voss said. Love, time, exhaustion. Dignity is simply a better currency. She leaned back. Think on it. 48 hours. The world gets bored, or it gets hungry. Help me decide which. She stood, fastened her coat with a motion you could measure your life against, and left her card not like an invitation but like a hotel key you'd find in the wrong pocket after you'd gone home. They rode the elevator in a silence that chose to do the heavy lifting. Somewhere above them, the generator deepened its hum. Nia's reflection in the mirrored brass did not look older. It only looked awake. Security called. Imran took the phone. Listen. Asked for quarter-hour slices, for camera IDs, for a copy sealed in a pouch with signatures across the flap. Chain of custody, he said, and the concierge sighed, like a man who respects the shape of a thing even when it slows his afternoon. Back in the room, Nia reached for The Secret Garden and felt the dry whisper of absent paper. She stopped moving. She checked the pages. She always checked. She shook the book, which was nonsense. Photos didn't fall out for gravity when they'd been taken by hands. Missing, Lydia asked, already opening a new folder on her laptop. The Winter Lights photo, Nia said. Gone. Imran's phone buzzed with the footage link. He brought it up and set it on the desk at an angle where everyone could see and no one had to. Black and white fisheye. A blackout. The housekeeping cart moving a polite distance. A shadow, shouldering the door. A gloved hand where it didn't belong. Print the still, Lydia said. Bag it. Label it. Incident report to the Met and to the hotel's insurer. Copy to us. Copy to a notary. She typed while she spoke. Also, call the clinic director. Ask for the minute drafts and call logs from last night. Use the words statutory right of inspection and regulator. Chris's. On it, Imran said. Also, bread still warm? This is why you lead revolution. Lydia told him, you bring carbohydrates. The tabloids found a worse angle before lunch. A push alert vibrated like a mosquito and bit deeper. Exclusive girl's secret diary, what is she hiding? A cropped image of blue linen and a thumb you could mistake for hers filled the screen. It's the cover, Nia said, not the page. They want you to panic and fill in the caption for them. Lydia said, we'll do the opposite. How? By being boring, Lydia said. We'll publish one page, on our terms, with hash. The page will say nothing that feeds their narrative and everything that arms ours. Nia opened the journal with hands that shook only at the wrist. She chose a margin that said nothing about names and everything about method. She photographed the page square to the world, printed the SHA 256, and sent it in a post that used 5 words and no adjectives. This is the whole page. Edgar added a caption fit for a courthouse. Hash. Team stamp. Witness. For a minute, the world remembered math. A few accounts with quiet avatars, retweeted with the solidity of people who liked receipts. The tabloids still shouted, but the air changed its shape. Her phone rang with a hospital beep somewhere on the line. I'm fine, Mama Ruth said first, because she knew how bridges are built. The board paused. They paused. Nia said, someone took a photo from my room. They can't steal your eyes, Mama Ruth said. They can steal paper, so we'll make more paper. She took a breath. Eat. Then breathe. Then call me back and tell me something silly. I need silly. I'm running low. Imran has bread, Nia said. Lord loves a man with bread, Mama Ruth said, and hung up before her voice taught the room too much. Imran placed the locket in her palm without comment. The dent fit, where it always did, but colder. She turned it inward so it met skin. Warmth found it after a beat and stayed. A knock landed soft as dust. Housekeeping, this time real eyes tired. Cart, honest. Badge laminated by someone who cared about fonts. Turned down, she asked. Later, Nia said, thank you. She waited for the cart to hum past, and only then let the breath out. Lydia slid her a printed sheet. Clinic minutes request statutory. 2 lines, 6 bullet points. A closing that didn't smile. Sign here, she said. We'll courier a hard copy and email a scanned one. They can't pretend they didn't receive both. They'll try anyway. Imran said, great. Lydia said, denial is our favorite witness. The elevator chimed down the hall. A small bell with excellent manners. Rain hardened against the window and made the glass respect it. Somewhere close, a vacuum cleaner picked a fight with a seam and won. Nia sat at the desk with the blue linen open to the margin she'd reached for all day and hadn't earned yet. She wrote, neat and small. Small things hold our shape. They came for small thing. I'm not done being a person. She closed the book and laid her palm over the cover, as if to keep the ink company until it made friends with the paper. She stood and went to the window and pressed her forehead to the glass. The cold steadied her thinking. Breath made a fog oval. It cleared in the shape of a door. Her phone buzzed. See, price, counsel, dignity through discretion. 48 hours. We can make the clinic whole, she replied with 3 words. Dignity needs nouns. Then she put the phone face down and let silence sit like a third chair. Evening adjusted the room without asking. The lamps went warmer. The city rubbed its tired eyes. Nia checked the stitched pocket one more time before bed. The key lay flat, cool as a fact. The locket's chain warmed the skin above her sternum. She switched off the light, listened to the building hum, and counted backward from a number that didn't matter until sleep agreed to meet her halfway. Outside, London kept raining in the same careful handwriting. Inside, the page she'd written cooled to a calm truth. The dent remembered its job, and the door hers, not theirs, stayed where she'd left it, open just enough for air. The call bent the morning out of shape. Nurse from Baltimore. A voice said, soft but trained, your grandmother is stable. Now, fluids, observation. She told me to tell you not to make a fuss. How long will she stay? Overnight. Paper shuffled. She asked if the meatloaf still tastes like a shoe. Nia laughed once because the alternative had teeth. Tell her I said it does. She hung up, and the room went back to lilies and carpet hush. Rain drilled the window in neat diagonals. The locket lay on the desk, dent turned inward, like a secret, on purpose. A push alert sprang up with the enthusiasm of a bad friend. Leaked audio girl demands payoff. Another, I'll sign if you wire the money exclusive voice note. The clip wore a watermark from an account named like a laundromat. Imran arrived on the first knock, still zipping his jacket. He pressed play with one knuckle. The voice on the phone sounded like Nia, if Nia had swallowed gravel and a script. It's a fake, she said. Not just fake, he said. It's proud. Fake. He rewound. Listen to the room tone. It's glue. Lydia walked in on the last syllable. Hair in a compromise with weather, laptop already awake. We don't chase ghosts, she said. We close windows. We file, she typed while talking, a neat percussion. Takedown notices where they're worth it. Preservation notices where they're not. We'll need your phone logs from yesterday receipts. Not feelings. Nia handed over the phone like a witness. Lydia exported call history to a PDF, with the bored grace of someone who had done this under worse lights. We'll publish a single statement, she said. 4 sentences. No adjectives. Then we stop feeding the thing that eats. What do I say? Say noons. Lydia said, I did not make this recording. My phone logs are attached. Hash below. We will cooperate with the regulator. Then you go for a walk and pretend the sky is innocent? Dark humor allowance. Imran said, opening the curtains. The sky has a lawyer. They posted. A handful of quiet accounts retweeted with the steady calm of people who like clocks. The bigger accounts pretended not to see. Pretending is part of the show. Bread. Imran declared. Let's fail to be tragic. They stepped into a day that had woken up tired. Taxi spray hissed at their ankles. A woman in a trench coat ate a banana like someone who'd fired elegance last week. The bakery exhaled olive oil and heat. They stood at the counter because the tables were arguing with their chairs. Nia bit into something with sesame that forgave her immediately. On the way back, the street changed its mind. A camera crew lifted from a bench like birds. Two men with lenses moved fast and low, the way people do who want a collision to read as accident. Miss Carter, one said, already closer than honesty. We don't do this. Imran said, calm as a curb, step back. The second man cut right. Nia pivoted left and felt fingers brush the chain. The clasp slipped with a traitor's speed. The locket dropped, skittered, and the toe of a sneaker sent it hard into a seam of stone. She didn't cry out. She crouched, hand flat, and the city shrank to grit and gum, and a bright coin with a spiderweb fracture under the face. She lifted it, and the glass inside sighed itself into a crack that touched from edge to edge. Enough. Imran said, not loud but final. Security from the hotel arrived with courtesy that had had it. Lydia's hand appeared and caught a wrist mid-grab, like she was editing a scene in real time. Assault on a minor is still assault, she said. We're preserving the names you just volunteered. She turned to the doorman without raising her voice. Footage, please. Street and lobby. Bag the broken filter on that camera. She pointed at the sheen on the lens. Yes, that one. A manager took statements with a pen that clicked in apology. Imran signed for a CCTV copy. The clerk slid it into a tamper pouch and wrote the time across the seal like a chisel. Chain of custody had a small, satisfying sound when the zip closed. Back upstairs. The locket lay on a white towel like a patient. The fracture under the face had turned the tiny oval window into two triangles. Nia turned the dent inward and felt the chill climb into warmth, the way a bruise learns skin. Her phone buzzed. C. Price. Counsel. We regret today's unpleasantness. Our clients are prepared to include the clinic's funding, scholarships for 5, and relocation for your family. Confidentiality assures dignity. She forwarded to Lydia with record as subject and put the phone face down. Pick your noise, Lydia said. Printing forms. We file assault with the Met. We notify the hotel's insurer. We serve preservation to the tabloid that posted the clip. We CC the regulator. She looked at Nia. You don't owe anyone a quote. Nia opened the blue journal to the margin and wrote with the heavy pen that could dent the page. They set a price on quiet. I chose the cost of noise. She underlined, chose. Once, the stroke left a groove her fingertip could feel. Imran set water on the desk and the kind of biscuit a person forgets to like until it's there. Who taught you to write like that? He asked, not expecting an answer. My grandmother, Nia said. She writes grocery lists, like indictments. Lydia's phone purred. She glanced, then smiled, the way a person smiles at gravity. Hotel security loved us enough to send timestamps. She said, our friend with the sneaker is David Pike, freelance. We'll lodge the complaint and the video. The regulator will care about the clip more if we walk in with a bag instead of a plea. Clip, Nia asked. Deepfake. Lydia said, We won't do the science lesson today. We'll do the chain phone logs. Show no such call. Your network provider's CDR corroborates, and your device hash hasn't changed. Also, there's a mouth sound on the fake that repeats every 9 seconds. Lazy stitching. So we can prove it. Nia said. We can show it. Lydia said. Different sport. Better result. The room settled into its working temperature. Printers made their gentle judgments. Emails went out with subject lines that held their own spines. A hospital beep threaded her phone. Mama Ruth again, voice thin with fluids and command. I saw they tried to steal your sound, she said. They did. Nia said, make more sound. Mama Ruth said, make the right kind. Don't you spend your throat on fool. They can buy my silence. Nia said, have to see how the sentence felt. They can rent it. Mama Ruth corrected. They can't buy what they don't own. A breath. Eat something. The world goes down easier if the belly gets a vote. After the call, the room did the negative space thing. Silence stared at the dent. The dent stared back. Walk again. Imran said, if we don't move, the day will keep pressing its face to the glass. They took the back exit where staff laughed with their whole backs. The alley smelled like yeast and damp cardboard. Rain ticked on a steel grate, like patient money. On the corner, a street preacher held up a sign about mercy, as if it contained instructions. A boy in a school blazer slid past, tea half done, shoes, making a small argument with the puddles. The city kept hosting its mess with practice. Your clip will keep doing laps until it gets bored. Imran said, we give it nothing to eat. I want to answer everything. Nia said, you want relief. He said, answering is a different animal. Back at the hotel, a white box sat with the concierge. No sender, too neat. Inside a tabloid with her blinking face, a brochure for a boarding school with lawns more expensive than truth, and a business card with only a phone number. Imran photographed the contents, slid them into a clear sleeve, labeled, dated, initialed, Museum of Bad Taste. He said, Exhibit A. Do they think education is hush money? Naya asked. They think everything is hush money. Lydia said, we think paperwork is a revolution. Afternoon bent toward pewter. Edgar called from chambers, with the voice of a man who had eaten an entire statute and found it nourishing. We have a meeting with the clinic's chair in the morning. He said, I used the words statutory inspection. He used the word meanwhile. We're on the right road. North Annex. Lydia asked, locksmith schedule, 24 to 48. Nia closed her eyes at the number and opened them before it could try to be a verdict. We have 32 hours of power, she said. Then we bring candles to the boardroom, Edgar said, and a reporter who likes receipts. Evening came on like a compromise. The rain softened into a fine, democratic mist. From somewhere down the corridor, the vacuum cleaner sang the single song it knew and was forgiven. For Naya sat at the window. She pressed her forehead to the glass. Her breath fogged an oval. The oval cleared. The city held. She unclasped the chain and turned the locket in her hand. The little window showed its crack like a truth that had finally told on itself. She tried the hinge. Slow. Inside. The tiny photo had shattered into flakes that still held a face if you were kind. She didn't try to reassemble it. She closed the locket and turned the dent inward. Warmth found it and stayed, an agreement made without word. Her phone buzzed once more. Unknown. We can make this painless if you stop asking for names. She typed 3 words and didn't send them. She wrote them in the journal instead. Nouns or nothing. She set the pen down and let the black line cool. Lightning muttered far off like a committee that hadn't reached quorum. She checked the stitched pocket. felt the oval of the key, and let that small, factual cold argue her heartbeat into a steadier pace. Tomorrow, Imran said from the doorway, leaning like a parenthesis. We file 3 complaints and 1 request. We ask for minutes. We bring a plate of cookies to whoever runs the server backups. Cookies. Never fight an IT person, he said. Befriend them. Lydia gathered the printed forms and slid them into a folder with a clean spine. We keep our lines straight when someone tries to curve us. She said, paper, patience, breath. She lifted her chin at the locket, and a map that used to be a wound. Night put a softer shape on the room. The lamps knew how to be kind. Outside, taxis blinked their small red eyelids and forgot to be menacing. Nia turned off the light and lay down with the journal open to the margin so the last sentence could look at her while she slept. The building hummed a lullaby invented by engineers. She counted back from a number that meant nothing and arrived somewhere gentler. Before sleep, she touched the dent with 1 finger and the key with 2. Small things, holding shape, noise outside, nouns inside, door where she'd left it. They put her on speaker and called it courtesy. The board chair's voice came thin through the polycom. A coat hanger pretending to be a cello. We're simply pausing to reflect, he said, as if pose didn't bruise. Steam drifted from the paper cup in Nia's hands and went nowhere useful. Lydia stood by the window, a silhouette cut from calm. Lovely, she said. Let's all reflect on your own constitution, Section 5. Subparagraph 2. Decisions must be evidence-based. Rumor is not evidence. A secretary shuffled papers, loud enough to sound busy, not loud enough to be brave. Imran muted the mic with his thumb and mimed breathing. Nia breathed, counted ribs. Didn't count reasons. Send your minutes. Lydia continued. All drafts. Call logs for the last 72 hours. We'll need dial-in records and the list of anyone who whispered the word prudence in your ear. We can reconvene next week, the chair said, already escaping. Today, Lydia said, by close of business, we're filing a statutory inspection request in the next 10 minutes. You'll find that time knows how to hurry. She ended the call with a sound that wasn't a sound. The room listened to its own hum. Outside, rain tested the glass and decided to keep knocking. Edgar came in with a stack of folders that behaved like law. The regulator has acknowledged receipt, he said. They want an initial package. In 72 hours emails, minutes, media contacts. Failure to provide will be treated as interference. Clock, Imran said, tapping his watch once. Clock. Edgar agreed. We respond in bundles. We make them choose whether to be slow or wrong. The email from the clinic landed like a polite insult. Minitus attached draft. Subject line smiled. Lydia opened the PDF, moved her head an inch, and sniffed the metadata like a sommelier. Created 7 hours ago, she said, by someone who wasn't in the meeting that was allegedly last night. Document properties edited twice, both times after the tabloid headline. Reflection apparently causes time travel. Ask for the original docx and server backup, Edgar said, not looking up, and the call log that proves the chair wasn't on the phone to a liaison 15 minutes earlier. Nia angled the blue journal so the desk lamp made a small, warm lake around the margin. She wrote a single line and stopped halfway through the second. Ink cooled into its own courage. A buzz at the door. The receptionist wheeled in a small cart of sandwiches that tried to pretend they weren't delicious. Imran made a plate with the care of a man dressing a wound. Eat before the ambulance, he said. I'm fine, Nia said. Fine is a temperature, he said. Body heat gets a vote. They moved from law to paper, with a rhythm that had learned itself. Edgar drafted demands with nouns that couldn't be mistaken. Lydia stitched preservation notices to 3 outlets and a platform with a taste for gossip. Imran called the clinic IT desk and made friends like he meant it. Backups. He asked the person who answered, "Blessings on your name. We would love your incremental snapshots from 1,900 to 2,300 UTC yesterday. We'll bring biscuits. The good ones." The IT manager, a woman named Sori, laughed in a way that held both suspicion and hope. "Bring 2 kinds," she said. "Plain for the old guard. Chocolate for me." A courier arrived with a banker's box that wore its tape-like armor. Inside, the bank's locksmith schedule, the North Annex forms, and a letter that said 24-48 hours. 3 different ways. Edgar initialed. Lydia photographed. Imran put his signature on the chain of custody strip with neat block letters that made the pouch look proud. Naya's phone buzzed. A tight little hum. Regulator initial package, due by 1800 Friday. Interview under caution to be scheduled. A second message followed. Older brother tone. We do not advise public comment. Lydia read over her shoulder. We will comment to them, not to the air, she said. That's the bargain. The clinic sent a second email, then a third. The third claimed that interim minutes superseded working notes. Lydia replied with 6 words that could bruise. Kindly produce what actually happened. She CC'd a sorry IT with the subject line, "Backups are our friend," and an emoji so unhip it achieved sincerity. Afternoon thinned, the city light cooled into pewter. The office breathed like a tired animal that had decided not to bite. Edgar tapped his pen against the folder's spine. "Rowan wants to see you," he said to Nia, voice even. Eyes not. 10 minutes. No speeches. 2 witnesses. In a room with no table. Your choice. The locket cooled against her skin as if agreeing to be a noun again. She looked at the carpet, not because it could answer, but because it could be still. "Okay," she said. "Not today. Tomorrow morning. 10 minutes. Good," Edgar said. "We'll use the firm's small interview room. Radiator ticks. Window to a light well. Neutral share. No corners to hide in." Imran thumbed a message and tilted the screen so she could see. Rowan confirmed. "Grateful. Will abide by rules." A beat later. "I won't ask for forgiveness. I'll ask for chores." "Are appropriate," Lydia said, dry as a towel. "Make him do the heavy lifting with nouns." The clinic's chair called back as if he'd been dared. "We're not obligated to provide drafts," he began. "You are obligated to provide truth," Lydia said. "Drafts are evidence of how truth was handled. This is hostile. This is the law," she said, and paused long enough for him to hear the absence of mercy. "Will be at your office at 9 with an inspection request and an appetite for coffee." He hung up. It made a noise that could have been bravery and was more likely habit. Sorry emailed 2 minutes later. "Found autosaves on a network share. Nobody clean. You'll like these. Also, what kind of biscuits?" Imran wrote back a grocery list, like a love letter. Lydia added the regulator to BCC with the line, "Courtesy, copy, integrity of records," and the calm smile of someone laying bricks. They took a walk because rooms need to exhale too. The firm's stairwell smelled like wool and old printers. A landing window faced a rectangle of sky that practiced blue like a second language. "Say the plan out loud," Imran said as they descended. "Paper and patience," Nia answered. "Minutes. Backups. Call logs. Then the meeting with Rowan. Then we breathe into the next hour." "Perfect," he said. "The universe loves a list." They passed a paralegal office where two assistants argued about whether receipts should be stapled at 45 degrees or perpendicular. Edgar stopped long enough to point at the stapler. Perpendicular, he said. We are not savages. Back upstairs. A small padded envelope waited with the receptionist. CCTV copy. Incident outside main entrance. 140-31409. Imran signed his name, the receptionist countersigned, and a blue strip crossed the seal with all the satisfaction of ceremony done right. We'll deliver a duplicate to the Met, Lydia said, and to the regulator on a single drive for their IT. No surprises, no excuses. Nia touched the pouch and felt the tiny heat of new evidence. Her chest loosened a knot. Down the hall, a kettle clicked off, and the room smelled briefly of rain and old leaves. At 5, an email arrived from C. Price, dressed like a dove. Our clients are prepared to fund the clinic retroactively, assuming mutual discretion. We propose language. Edgar forwarded it to Lydia with one word. Decline. Lydia replied with 2. Regulator notified. Nia sat at the corner of the conference table and opened the blue journal. She wrote one line clean. The way a knife draws a seam. I keep the ledger of my breath. She let the ink flatten. She closed the book and set it beside the locket so the two could acknowledge each other without competing. Home. Imran said quietly, then early bed. Tomorrow is admin with teeth. The hotel hallway smelled like vacuumed carpet and a floral war nobody had won. A housekeeping cart sat where it should. A towel had fallen and been folded again by someone with pride. Nia unlocked the door, hesitated, looked left and right, then stepped in like a person who had learned to check whether rooms were trying to be honest. She put the locket on the desk and turned the dent inward. The chain made a small sound like patience. She pressed 2 fingers to the stitched pocket. The key lay flat. Cool as a fact you can carry. Her phone buzzed. Rowan, thank you for tomorrow. I will not ask for more than you offer. She typed and erased and typed again. 10 minutes. No speeches. Use noon. She didn't hit send. The rules were already on paper. The room did its negative space trick. The aircon hummed, then paused, then hummed again. On the street below, a bus sighed like relief. She pressed her forehead to the glass until the cold taught her pulse a slower song. Breath fogged an oval, and the oval cleared to a smudge that looked halfway to a door. She watched it fade. Her phone lit once more. Regulator confirmed receipt of preservation notices. Please lodge any deepfake artifacts with original hashes. Lydia answered from the next room, like telepathy. On courier, chain intact. Nia turned off the lamp. The dark arrived with good manners. She lay on her side with the journal under her palm, and the key under the stitch, and the dent warm against bone. Tomorrow, she said into the dark, to the ledger, to the breath that would need counting again. 10 minutes, she said, to the man who'd asked for chores instead of absolution. No speeches, she added, and sleep finally believed her. They gave the room nothing to hide behind. 2 chairs, a radiator that ticked when it remembered, a window to a brick light well, where rain drew parallel lines and lost discipline at the sill. A tray with 2 glasses waited on a side table like a polite alibi nobody would use. Rowan sat with his palms flat on his knees, sleeves rolled as if work had a dress code. A pale bruise marked the inside of his elbow, where a line had lived and moved on. He looked at the floor first, then at Nia, and finally at the space between them like he understood that was the real audience. Nia took the other chair and set her heels on the lower rung to make the world the right height. The locket lay cool against her sternum. Crescent, dent turned inward until warmth decided to keep it. Her fingers found the stitched pocket, and the key answered with its small, factual chill. Edgar stood in the doorway. Guardian punctuation. 10 minutes, he said. No speeches. Witnesses outside. Lydia leaned on the jamb, with her phone dark and her patience sharpened to a quiet edge. The door clicked shut and stayed honest. Silence unrolled like a rug. Rowan lifted his eyes and did not reach for anything except the truth. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" Nia asked. "Because the noun mattered. For avoiding the room that had my name on it, and sending other people to stand there until it looked like a door." She watched his hands. They didn't tremble. They learned stillness like a new instrument. "That's not a speech," she said. "That's a sentence." He nodded once. "I was a coward," he added, as if paying a bill in exact change. "I outsourced the parts of being a person to people who charge by the hour." "Do you want to be my father?" she asked. The radiator ticked once, a tiny metronome under breath. "I want a chance to be useful," he said. "Father is a job you apply for every day. I forfeited my early interviews." Her mouth moved into a line that didn't promise and didn't close. "You can start with nouns," she said. He made a small, broken smile. "I failed," he said. "I'll cooperate. I won't ask you to carry my comfort." Air moved. Not much, but enough to register. Edgar coughed once in the hall like a man reminding the day it had a spine. Rowan looked at the locket where it rose under fabric and did not pretend to recognize it. He didn't ask to see the journal or the key. "Is there work for me that doesn't center me?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Make the clinic whole quietly," she continued, "and stop paying people who like to rearrange the weather." "I can do that," he said. Something left his shoulders and didn't slam the door. "Thank you for not making a stage." 10 minutes, she said. No speeches. He stood when she did and stepped aside so she could go first, which was the right size of apology in a hallway. Lydia closed the door to the small room with the exact pressure. "Good hinges prefer." She held up a slim folder printed "Compliance Review, External Liaison Interventions Draft." "Read," she said. "Give it back. Pretend you didn't until a judge says you did." The landing outside the interview rooms was colder by 2 degrees and smelled faintly of wool and toner. Nia opened the folder and found bullets in fast, square handwriting that didn't flatter itself. "Lingbai EC." Immigration flag toggled. "On at liaison request." "Lingzhou Lingar." Toggled. "Off." Same. 15 minutes before the board email. A call from a number registered to Voss Strategies. Press brief draft compassion angle. Budget monitoring vendors undisclosed. "Is it enough?" she asked. "For ethics complaints." "Yes," Lydia said. "For criminal questions we'll need the email chain." "She thinks she archived out of existence. How do we get it?" "Paper," Lydia said. "Patience. And a conversation where she feels expensive and safe." "You want me to meet her in a place that flatters her," Lydia replied. "One-party consent in this jurisdiction, but we won't publish unlawfully. We'll treat any personal data like it has teeth. We bring an independent solicitor to bless the edges, and if she doesn't talk, she will," Lydia said, calm as steel. "She confuses monologue with discretion. It's her favorite sport." They took the stairs down one flight to a window that framed rain without commentary. Imran appeared with 2 paper cups and a grin that practiced mercy. "Not tea," he said. "Hot water with lemon and a belief in checks and balances." Nia wrapped both hands around the cup and felt heat offer terms. "What did his text say?" she asked, meaning Rowan. Lydia lifted her phone. "Thank you. Will abide by rule. Will not ask for absolution." She read, then tucked it away like a receipt she planned to keep. The lift dinged and opened on cue. Gavin, tie trying too hard, hair obeying a memo, eyes skate sharp. He smiled in the way of men who think sincerity is a skill you can rent by the quarter hour. We need to be realistic, he said to Edgar and Lydia, not quite looking at Nia. There's a path to a softer landing. Joint statement. Tasteful photo at a distance. Funding for the clinic. Permanent. The market hates uncertainty. Markets can learn, Lydia said. I wasn't asking you, Gavin replied, redirecting his smile toward Nia like light from a cheap mirror. I'm offering safety. You're offering quiet. Nia said. They aren't the same, she added. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He leaned closer than the air enjoyed and lowered his voice, like confidential could be borrowed. Listen, he said. I've been told in crisp terms to land this plane. If I don't, some very old men get very young again and start swinging their money. That sounds unsanitary, Imran said. 2 conditions. Gavin rushed, ignoring him. You stop asking for names, and the clinic funds restore with back pay. No press. Start with the clinic, Nia said. Then we'll see. He nodded too fast. His phone buzzed, and he flinched at the caller ID the way a person flinches at a sudden mirror. He sidestepped into the stairwell to take it, and left the smell of expensive cologne and burning rope. Gray, Lydia said softly. Still picking a color, Edgar added. Nia looked at the window where rain had lined up like a ledger and then slipped its sum. Back upstairs. The corridor wore late afternoon like a thoughtful coat. A paralegal pushed a trolley of Redwelds and hummed a melody that hadn't decided who it belonged to. They paused outside the interview room again because good rooms deserve to be noticed twice. Rowan stood just inside with his hands folded so gravity had something to do. He did not reach for her and did not pretend he didn't want to. Thank you, he said, and made the 2 words heavy enough to count without letting them try to be everything. She tipped her chin and kept moving. Imran peeled off to schedule rooms at a club with velvet that swallowed sound. Edgar sent a message to a solicitor with a granite voice and a travel-friendly drive. Lydia drafted a letter for the club manager to sign. Staff will not record. Private room. Door crack. Line of sight witnesses. In the small conference room by reception, Nia opened the blue journal. She wrote 4 short lines that didn't beg for attention. I asked and didn't drown, he answered without a speech. They mistake me for a headline. I keep being a person. She let the ink cool and closed the book like a door that would still be there when she came back. Her fingers found the locket and turned the dent inward until skin made it true again. Every small ritual is a hinge. Every hinge remembers the door. The receptionist arrived with a padded envelope that hissed when she set it down. CCTV, Copy Lobby, Street, 1, 4, 0, 3, 1, 4, 0, 9. In block letters, signatures, crossing the seal like careful bridges. Do you want me to call the courier now? She asked. Please, Lydia said. 2 destinations. Met for assault. Regulator. For artifact. 1 hour. They walked to the elevator because stairs are for hard days, and this day was measured in paper. Gavin waited there again. T. Locent, a man mid-contradiction. I can push the funding through today, he said, eyes finally choosing to meet Nia's. I'll lose a committee seat. I won't starve. That's not a tragedy, she said. It's a choice. He almost laughed at himself, and that was new. Fine, he said. I'll choose. You'll hate my timing, but like my nouns, welcome to adulthood. Imran said. We have biscuits. On the sidewalk, London rehearsed evening by dimming at the edges. Taxi lights blinked like patient insects. The club's brass plaque on Cavendish looked smug from here. It would be less so with a manager's signature in the file. They stopped at the window the building gave to the weather. Naya pressed her forehead to glass cooled by rain and made a fog oval that looked like a small door practicing. She breathed until it cleared, and then breathed again. "Tomorrow," Lydia said, "manager letter by 10. Room at 4. Independent, present, recorder checked and hashed. Cups of water we won't drink," Edgar added, "and a server who knows how not to overhear." "Dark humor allotment," Imran said, opening the stairwell door with a flourish. "I'll order tea everyone will hate." They laughed once. Small and real, it left the air kinder. They went back to work. In her room later, the hallway smelled like vacuum and a floral argument that had calmed down. She set the secret garden beside the journal and squared their corners. When she picked up the locket, her thumb found a shallow groove along the rim she hadn't felt before. She turned the oval to the light. The edge showed a tiny channel, not decoration but design, a micro keyway, no bigger than a thread's width. She slid the point of a paperclip along it and felt a notch click like a secret changing sides. The hinge opened a whisper wider than yesterday. A sliver of black plastic glinted under the cloth backing, no larger than a fingernail, micro SD, seated where sentiment would hide it best. She didn't pull it out. She didn't close it all the way, either. "Tomorrow," she said to the not quite closed locket, to the key under the stitch, to the page that had learned her hand. We set the door and let her walk into it. She snapped the clasp shut, turned the dent inward, and let its small moon warm against bone, while the city practiced rain on glass, and the radiator ticked time like a metronome that had finally accepted the song. The club wore privacy like a scent warm brass, polished wood, the hush of carpet that knew how to swallow a footstep. Light came low and flattering, as if it were on retainer. A waiter drifted past with water that hadn't learned to taste like anything. Nia sat at a table that wasn't quite a corner. The locket lay cool at her sternum. Dent turned inward until warmth signed the contract. In her jacket pocket, a phone in a slim case, weighted clock synced, storage cleared, battery full, recording set to roll on a long press. Across the room, a side door sat open by 2 fingers, a perfectly casual accident. Through that sliver, a private dining nook held Edgar, an independent solicitor, with a portable drive the size of a thumb and the seriousness of a vault, and a compliance manager whose superpower was patience. On the host stand, the club manager's letter rested under a paperweight. "Staff will not record. Manager witness start time. No third-party devices present. Door cracked for line of sight." Eleanor Voss arrived 6 minutes late and half an inch taller. Her coat made a sound like confidence being folded. She placed her bag on the empty chair as if it needed to be seen to do its job. "You chose a room that flatters you," Naya said. "Every room does," Voss replied, relaxing into the chair like a verdict. "Drink, water. Perfect," Voss said, which is what people say when they intend to change the subject. The first 30 seconds were choreography napkin. Menu she didn't read, a glance that inventoried exits, and the size of the room's silence. Somewhere behind them, the radiator flexed with a tick-tick-tick that kept honest time. "I can resolve your morning," Voss began, voice pitched for microphones even when none were visible. "The clinic is a rounding error. The headlines are a pulse. We lower the blood pressure and move on." "How?" Naya asked. "The word balanced like a coin. We cloak. We reframe." Voss steepled her fingers without looking at them. "A joint statement emphasizing compassion and privacy. A tasteful photograph at distance. 5 scholarships. Housing. A retroactive, permanent line item for the clinic. You do nothing. We do everything. and immigration. Nia kept her face still. Filters were lax. Someone asked for confirmation. Vos said. Grammar laundering fingerprints. Files get touched, then cleansed. That is what systems are. 4. And the board, we avoided a public mistake. Voss smiled. Committees respond to tone. I tuned. The press. Favors. Not envelopes, she said. Angles. Not lies. A public waves a scandal through if it looks sorrowful enough. You sound proud, Nia said. I sound accurate. Voss replied. Accurate people prosper. The phone in Nia's pocket hummed once under her thumb. Record. Time stamped itself in quiet digits. The independent solicitor in the crack of the door raised his eyes, watched the second hand turn, watched Nia's shoulder rise and fall, watched chain of custody begin like a breath. Say it clean, Nia said. Say what you did. I managed communications. Voss' smile didn't dim. I briefed a committee so they wouldn't torpedo a program on an unexamined association. I requested verification at the border when a name raised mismatched flags. Pride passed through her like a current. I keep mess off institutions that can't afford it. Institutions like men, Nia said, and mergers, and contracts that confuse countries with companies. We are past civics. Voss said mildly. We are in real life. Real life has rule, Nia said. Some of them are written down, which is why we brought you to dinner instead of war. Voss answered, help me help you, and we'll all wake to a gentler inbox. A server set down olives that neither of them wanted. Voss waved them away with emotion, minimalist and imperial. The air moved by 1 degree, and then stopped. I don't want anyone to bleed, Nia said. I want to stop being a lever. Not bleeding is a minority outcome. Voss said. Hubris has a sound. It's a tuning fork ringing in a room that thinks it's empty. Nia took a sip of water because the body counts too. If I said yes, what would I do tomorrow? Nothing. Voss said, pleased by the elegance. We would do everything. And if I say no, you will learn how long a week can be. Voss replied, but you already started that lesson. Nia put the glass down exactly where the condensation ring wanted it. Silence took a step closer, then waited. In the doorway, crack, the independent solicitor checked the recorder clock and wrote a line on a pad. 1607. Subject acknowledges border intervention. Board tuning. Press angle. The compliance manager opened a small case, revealed a second dry, and breathed without announcing it. Why me? Nia asked. Because your existence threatens an arrangement that took years and 9 digits, Voss said, finally letting the core show. Not because of who you are, because of what you mean to media, ministers, markets. A human story rewires rooms. I manage rooms. Rooms have doors. Nia said, I know how to keep them. Voss said, amused. Me too, Nia said, not amused. Voss reached for her bag, the gesture dismissive and conclusive. I like you, she added, as if that could tidy the day. Tell your lawyers to send numbers that signal intelligence. We will double whatever they think appropriate and have the trauma. We're not done, Nia said, standing. You don't know how these games work. Voss said, softer now. I do. Nia said, you talk until the room is yours. I listen until it's mine. For a beat, nobody moved. The radiator ticked. Glassware breathed. The club's velvet swallowed the sound of a distant laugh. Voss's smile thinned, then settled back into its practiced place. Pleasure, Voss said, and left the way a storm leaves, convinced it has improved the humidity. The private door opened 2 inches. Edgar stepped out with the independent solicitor, who held a portable drive that clicked into its case with the hiss of a decision, chain intact. The solicitor said, start 1603. Stop. 1618, time server sync, metadata preserved. No induction. She volunteered. Manager's sign. Edgar asked the host, signed and witnessed. The host said, pointing to the letter beneath the paperweight, "We don't do recordings, we do policies." "Bless you," Lydia said, appearing from nowhere and everywhere. She slid a second envelope across the tray. Club Pause receipt. For time sync, camera, hallway feed, hash on this note. Our independent will courier a duplicate drive to the regulator before 8. Nia sat because sitting is also a verb. Her hands were steady now that the air had admitted it was air. She looked at the olives and let them be a joke to no one. Phones woke with the politeness of knives. Push alert. A new clip the same. Deep fake. Altered room tone. Stitched breaths. Posted from an account named like a legal charity and registered to a P.O. box. It spread in a quick, oily fan. "Of course they did," Lydia said. "We lane change." She tapped open a prepared doc labeled Forensic Note Public and added 2 lines. Room noise repeats every 9 secondes. Loop artifact. POS timestamp and hallway camera hashes contradict posted clips. EXIF. Original lodged. Chain intact. She hit publish in the boring place that counts regulator portal, then posted a screenshot. With the calm of a librarian, "Bring the hallway camera," Edgar told the manager. "We'll do a side-by-side. When lies arrive first, truth should arrive with receipts." The compliance manager slid a cable to the club's back of house monitor. 2 videos played in twins, the real conversation, framed by a mirror's bevel and the edge of a brass sconce, the fake, framed by nothing. Room tone repeating like a nervous tick. The independent tapped the display and lifted a brow. Edgar nodded at the inspector's number already queued in his phone. "Package," the solicitor said, sealing the drive in a tempère évident push. He wrote the time across the strip and signed. The manager countersigned. Lydia added her initials in small, square letters. "Courier leaves in 12 minutes. He said, "Information Commissioner's Office. First, Anti-Corruption Unit. Second." Nia's phone buzzed. "Roven, I would like to speak publicly. You need not stand beside me." "R." She answered, "Do it." "Us noon." No poetry. A pause. Then, "The clinic first." He did. In a beige room in a building that sells clean light. A man said, "I failed," into a microphone, and left the sentence undressed. He said, "We will cooperate." And, "No contract is worth a child's quiet." And, "Make the clinic whole." He didn't search for better words, because the good ones had already arrived. In the back of a car that smelled like expensive air and bad timing, Voss watched a screen soften around edges that used to be sharp. Notifications slid down with the grace of falling blades. Regulator interviews under caution requested. Department clarify. Conflict disclosures by close of business. Merger partner pause to evaluate reputational exposure. Hubris rarely explodes. It unthreads. Calendar slots vanish. Assistants stop saying, "Of course." Door sensors forget a badge they swore to love forever. On the pavement outside the club, rain scribbled undecided cursive. The locket warmed against bone. Nia reached 2 fingers into the seam and pressed the micro hinge until she felt the micro SD click farther into its pocket, hidden under sentiment, where a search would pretend not to look. "Ready?" Edgar asked. "For what?" "For the paperwork that keeps the night honest." He passed her a pen that had outlived 3 secretaries. "Your witness statement. Short. Clean. Then we walk this to the courier like it's an organ on ice." She wrote. She described border verification at her request. board tuning, and press angles as methods. I did not induce. We recorded under one-party consent. Manager witnessed start and stop. She signed her name in letters that had learned their job this week. Lydia's phone kimmed. Sorry, it. Found autosaves. Board minutes draft from 0113 shows liaison call 15 minutes prior to pause email. Sending via secure link. Lydia looked at Nia and let a corner of her mouth think about smiling. Here comes the choir, she said. They stood under the awning while the courier rolled away with the pouch. Light rain collected on the edge of the canvas and fell in soft beads. A cheap necklace the knight didn't mind wearing. A cab hissed by. A server laughed in the kitchen. London tuned itself a notch lower. Home, Imran said, thumb gesturing toward the car like a comma. We'll eat something with salt and forget 5 minutes. Dark humor allotment. Lydia said, you used yours on the olives. I'll invoice. Imran said, back at the hotel. The hallway smelled like vacuumed carpet and lilies surrendering. Nia set the journal on the desk and squared its corners with the lamp's base. She wrote 3 lines, small as stitches. She opened her mouth and fell in. He opened his and climbed out. I kept the door. The room did a negative space. Beat. Only the radiator spoke, soft and punctual. Her phone vibrated again. Gavin. Funding restored. Retroactive. No press. I'll lose the committee seat. Worth it. She typed. Good news. Keep going. 3 dots appeared. Vanished. Returned. Then nothing. Fine. She unclasped the chain, turned the dent inward, and lay back. So bone could carry weight. Metal didn't know how to name. The micro SD pressed a thought under the skin of sentiment. Outside, rain worked on the city without fanfare. Paper, she said to the ceiling. Patience, she said to the key under the stitch. Breath, she said to the dent warming to her pulse. The night didn't answer. It didn't need to. It was already on the record. By late afternoon, the desert light flattened into a high white sheet, the color of dry bone. Heat peeled off the hospital parking lot in ripples. Inside, the air conditioning hummed a steady un dix francs payés. Nia followed the blue stripe on the linoleum to a courtyard, pretending gentleness could be engineered. A mesquite throwing thin shade, a birdbath tapping its silence, 2 benches with powder-coated patients. She sat where the sun couldn't quite reach and pressed her thumb to the locket at her sternum. Dent turned inward, like a secret kept on purpose. The key lay flat in the stitched pocket, cool and factual against rib. A nurse in violet scrubs checked a clipboard, squinted into the brightness, and tilted her head toward the far bench. Good hour, she said, for the pain and for the remembering. Then she slipped away like an apology that knew when to leave. Alina wore hospital cotton and a grin from an earlier life. Bare feet, ankle crossed, the kind of posture you have to earn. You found desert heat again, she said. It found me back. Nia answered. They let the quiet arrange the furniture between them. What's that book? Alina nodded at the spine, peeking from the backpack. The Secret Garden, still rude and kind. Nia opened to a page marked with an airline baggage tag, gone soft at the crease, and read a paragraph about a wall that hides a keyhole until you learn where to stand. The mesquite leaves made coins of light on Alina's forearm. A golf cart beeped twice and gave up. Somewhere a wheeled bin rattled over a threshold and kept moving. What do we call what you did? Alina asked, breathing in a room that wanted me to hold it. Nia said, writing where they'll read. Saying nouns? She touched the locket, keeping the dent. Truth leaves marks, Alina said. That's how you know it touched you. A sprinkler coughed awake behind a hedge. The courtyard took a breath. Nia pulled the blue journal from her bag. The cloth cover had learned her palm. The gold letters had dulled where her thumb lived. She opened to a margin that had been waiting and wrote small, "Today I held the quiet and let it look at itself." She blew once across the words, the ink flattened and went dark. She turned the page as if not to crowd it. The sliding door on the far side hissed and opened a few inches. Rowan stood there, a man who looked like he might apologize to the hinges. No tie, sleeves rolled, visitor sticker crooked. He saw them and lowered his eyes, not in defeat, but in something that looked like a lesson sticking. Alina lifted 2 fingers without ceremony. Rowan lifted his, and didn't mistake the gesture for permission. He stayed inside. A text buzzed. Gavin. Clinic vote taken. Funding restored. Retroactive. No press. I'll lose the committee seat. Worth it. Nya wrote back. Good news. Keep going. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Returned. Then nothing. Fine. Another message slid in from a number that had learned better manners. Regulator. Interview on a caution confirmed. Wednesday T0. Disclosure schedule attached. Please lodge any artifacts original hashes. Lydia. A beat later, package mirrored. Sorry found autosaves board prepared pause after call from V's office. Bring your calm. A wind shouldered through the courtyard. Heat moved aside. The mesquite shivered. Decided to stay. Do you forgive him? Alina asked, eyes on the not there horizon. I forgive in slices, Nia said. Mostly so the pieces don't rot in me. And the rest? I label it and keep it where I can see it. Alina's gaze dropped to the locket. Keep the dent, she said. It's topography. Maps tell stories without speeches. Nia laughed once. Short and true. Sometimes relief feels like air fitting your lungs again. The nurse returned to collect the moment. We've got to trade scenery, she said. 1 lap of the ward, and I'll bring her back. Alina stood with care and the kind of stubborn grace that makes injury feel small. Her hand found Nia's for a beat that wasn't quite a squeeze. Bring me something funny next time, she said, not brave. Funny. I'm full up on brave. I can do funny, Nia said, bad on purpose and good by accident. I trained you well, Alina said, and let the door whisk her away. Rowan stepped out to the polite distance. He smelled like hospital soap and outside air. He held a folded paper like it might jump. I watched a press conference today, he said, voice roughened by hours and shame. I recognized the man in it and disliked him less. Use nun, Nia said. I told the truth, he said. I said I failed. I asked them to put the contract second. I told a lawyer to make the clinic whole without a banner. He looked at the folded paper. He texted you before he asked me. Good order, she said. They looked at the bird bath in a way that didn't make it nervous. The air tasted like pennies and rain. I keep wanting to ask permission to fix what can't be fixed, he said. You can fix other things, she said. I will, he said quietly, even if it doesn't buy me the part I once thought I wanted. What part was that, Father? He said, and let it go without fishing in the pause for sympathy. She did nothing grand. She tilted her head toward the bench. He sat on the other end like a student on the first day, leaving a gulf for air and time to live in. Clouds drifted in from Mexico, bellies brown, shouldering summer like a dare. The smell of creosote slipped under the door of the afternoon. A tech rolled past, with a machine that beeped once, then fell silent. The quiet closed around it without protest. Her phone buzzed again. See. Price. We understand there's regulatory interest in Ms. V's communications. Our clients propose a framework limited disclosure in exchange for reduced scrutiny outcomes, not spectacle. She forwarded to Lydia with a single word, record. Then she typed to Rowan, they want mercy fast. Pick justice that holds, He nodded without seeing it. A swallow sketched the air over the courtyard and disappeared. Nia pressed her forehead to the glass panel by the door until cold talked her pulse down. Breath fogged an oval. She drew a line through it with her knuckle. Otini hinga. Lydia. Again. Crown prosecutor floated immunity light for V if she hands over the network. Your call on the letter we send, mercy buys speed, truth buys spine. Nia looked at Rowan, at the bench, at the space he'd chosen not to fill. She typed, mercy for information, not myth, clinic first, naming second. No poetry. Lydia. Perfect. Drafting in nouns. Rain arrived in not like a story but like a system outflow first. A cool sigh, then a fine grit that thickened into a sheet. The desert took it greedily and pretended it hadn't begged. The courtyard turned to a quiet instrument. Drops harped on the birdbath's rim. Rovan stood. I'll be here for visiting hours, he said. And not here when rules say not, but thinking about here anyway. Learn the rules before you rewrite any, she said. He touched the folded paper to his forehead like a private oath, and left without making the door into a speech. The nurse rolled Alina back with a ribbon of static in her hair and triumph on her face. 10 steps, Alina said. I noticed, Nia said. The storm softened. Somewhere, a gardener unlocked a gate, like forgiving a small debt. Thunder muttered one last opinion and shut up. They wheeled inside. The hallway breathed antiseptic and wet cotton. A volunteer at the visitor desk struggled with a jigsaw corners. Done. Sky. A nightmare of sameness. Nia paused, picked up a blue piece, and slid it into a notch on reflex. It fit. The volunteer looked up and smiled, astonished by how often joy arrives small. In Alina's room, the blinds had been taught to listen. The TV shapeshifted between weather and court. A reporter's mouth formed words about interview under caution and conflict disclosure. The crawl fussed about sources close to and ran out of breath. Tell me something good, Alina said, hitching herself higher with a wince she pretended not to own. It rained, Nia said, and the clinic remembered how to vote. 2 goods, Alina said. You only owed me 1. I'm overpaying today, Nia said. Interest rates on hope are bad. They laughed like people who recognized the lay of the land. A phlebotomist came and went with the grace of someone who had learned not to add drama to veins. The room settled into the working hum of keeping flesh honest. Night practiced at the window. Phoenix turned its neon on. The rain slowed to a thought, then to nothing. Nia took the journal and wrote 3 lines under the morning's I'm not waiting to be named. I'm learning the door from both sides. The dent is a map, not a wound. She left space under that. Sometimes you leave room for weather. Sometimes weather leaves room for you. Her phone buzzed once more. Gavin. Resignation letter filed. Docs attached, showing V's pressure on the board. Keep going, she replied with a seedling emoji she had never used before, small, unserious, stubborn, then typed. Good. Start with the clinic. Quietly. Permanently. Dots. A simple. Done. The nurse dimmed the lights. Monitors settled into soft, candid blinking. Alina fell into the kind of sleep that feels earned. Nia stepped into the corridor and pressed her forehead to the window again. Breath fogged an oval. She watched it clear, slow as a door that isn't afraid of its hinge. Her phone lit with one last message from regulator. Thank you for today's lodging. Case officer assigned. See you Wednesday. She typed, then erased. Then typed again. We'll bring nouns. She didn't hit send. The system didn't need style. It needed receipts. In the lobby, the volunteer lifted another sky piece and missed. Nia leaned, adjusted his hand, and the puzzle sighed into place. Some skies take more tries. The volunteer said, they're honest about it. Nia said, outside. The parking lot steamed faintly in the late heat. A siren braided itself with cricket noise and moved on. The city remembered how to be ordinary. She walked to the curb where Imran idled in a car that smelled like fabric and loyalty. He closed a paperback with the satisfaction of a man proven right about the killer. "Weather cooperating?" he asked. "It learned manners," she said, sliding in. He glanced at the locket, then at her face, and decided to keep both observations for later. "Home," he asked, meaning the motel, meaning temporary. "For now," she said. The AC put its palm on her cheeks. The road unrolled as if it had rehearsed. At the motel, the one that believed in pastel and a neon V that blinked like a tired eye, the clerk waved and slid a bag of ice across the counter with the solemnity of a sacristan. In the room, she set the journal, the key, and the secret garden on the nightstand and squared their corners. She called Mama Ruth. The line stitched city to dessert with their usual imperfect thread. "Tell me something silly," Mama Ruth said by way of hello. "I completed a stranger's puzzle like I had the license." Nia said, "Look at you fixing the sky," Mama Ruth said, and the sound in her voice softened the furniture. They said goodnight in the language that rooms learn when they're lucky. Nia lay back and let the air conditioner hum be the metronome she needed. She turned the locket so the dent stayed inward, pressed 2 fingers to the stitch where the key slept, and felt steadiness arrive like a modest guest. "They'll try again," she said into the dim, to the ledger, to the breath. "That would need counting. They'll rename the weather." She closed her eyes. On the nightstand, the blue linen waited without impatience. The micro SD stayed hidden under sentiment, sharper than any speech. Beyond the window, a last small ribbon of water slid off the eave and found the ground. She didn't chase it. She let it find its level. Then she slept. When the noise dies down, this story leaves a quiet lesson with a sturdy backbone. Dignity begins when we name ourselves and keep naming ourselves when pressure tries to rename us. In families, workplaces, and public systems, silence can feel polite, but it often protects what harms. The practical path is small and repeatable. Write things down. Ask for policies in writing. Bring a calm witness. Save emails and receipts. Set boundaries you can actually keep. Speak in clear nouns instead of accusations. You don't need a perfect speech, just steady steps. Notice relationships that shrink you, help that buys your quiet, apologies that move the blame to your back. Step toward people who hold you to your better self. Over the long haul, character tells. What goes around comes around, and real gold doesn't fear the fire. Justice is rarely instant, but persistence patience, breath changes the weather. If a moment in this story stayed with you, I'd love to hear why. Did it mirror a room you've been in, one that tried to name you? Share your experience in the comments so others can learn from your road. If the message felt timely, please tap like to help it find someone who needs it, and subscribe for more true, lived stories that blend grit with heart. Your perspective, especially from those who've walked farther, guides the rest of us coming up behind. Wishing you a gentle evening, a steady breath, and a small light that holds after the storm. May peace find you and stay.